My name's Amy Johnson, I'm 28. I had a breast augmentation with Mr. Richards. I've always been very flat-chested and I've always been quite conscious of it, but it's always been something that I think friends or family or boyfriends at the time have been quite anti me having done, but I just got to the point where I thought, enough is enough now. I've got to the age where I'm old enough and mature enough to make a decision for myself, and so I decided to go ahead and have a breast enlargement. I obviously looked into the procedure initially, what it entailed, the surgery itself, and then post-operative procedures to make sure that full recovery was made. And then once I was happy that the procedure was the one for me, I decided that it'd be best to really get the correct surgeon for the job. I'd kind of got to the point where, being 28, money wasn't too much of an object, so I wasn't prepared to kind of skimp on money and go for someone that wasn't going to do the best job for me. So I set about doing some research on the best surgeon for the job, which happened to be Mr. Richards. My initial consultation was with Aggie, and I came and met with her to discuss exactly why I wanted the procedure done in the first place, I guess to make sure that I was making the right decision for myself, and then to discuss exactly what look I wanted to achieve after or following the procedure. So she went through the whole thing from exactly where we'd go from the consultation to the surgery, and really reassured me that it was the right thing for me. And then we discussed what kind of size I wanted to go to. And so by the end of that consultation, I had a good idea as to where I was going and what I wanted. Mr. Richards came in towards the end of the consultation, I guess just to size me up, obviously being the professional himself. He did some measurements and then advised me the size of implants that best fit my frame, so that I wasn't going too big and obviously wasn't going to go too small and then not get the desired result that I wanted at the end. I've never had surgery before, so elective surgery was slightly nerve-wracking. But because I felt like I'd discussed in so much detail exactly what it is that I wanted done beforehand, I'd gone over and over again with Aggie and Mr. Richards exactly what I could expect. I already knew exactly how the day was going to go, so that was reassuring. Turned up at the hospital, checked in, was put into my nice comfortable private room, and then obviously met with Mr. Richards and Aggie and went through everything all over again, discussed the end result, made sure that the size of the implant I'd selected was correct for me, and then decided I waited quite a long time for my surgery, so I had a little bit of time to kind of think about it, but it was absolutely fine. I'd already gone over everything before. I was uncomfortable to start off with. It's very unnerving not being able to move your arms, but I think that's also the best thing for you, so it's kind of good your body stops you from doing that. But I actually recovered pretty quickly. I remember coming to my 1 week post-op check-up with Sinead, and I'd driven myself here and she was a bit surprised that I had. I'm quite athletic, so I think they'd struggled to get it under the muscle, so she was a bit amazed that I could do everything that I'd been doing. But I took it easy and did exactly what I was told to do, and I actually didn't have as much pain as I had thought I was going to have. It's definitely an uncomfortable procedure, but I think if you follow all the advice that you're given and take the medication that you're prescribed, it's an easy thing to kind of cope with for a week or so. During my healing process, I kind of realised that they weren't settling as I had wanted them to settle. They weren't dropping. Because I am quite athletic, my chest muscle is quite strong. I had been told that after my surgery. And what that meant was, one was they were held laterally, so they didn't drop as I would have liked them, and they were kind of quite wide apart, which was unlike my original kind of frame. So when I came back at 6 weeks, I expressed that I was concerned about how they were settling. And at that point there was very little that anybody could do. However, I was kind of told to go away. I was given some massage techniques to try and see whether it helped them settle and relax the muscles slightly. But I was in a bit of a state when I came back at 6 weeks. I was upset with regards to what was happening to my own body, but I was reassured at that point that surgery was always an option to be able to correct them at 12 weeks. At no expense to myself. So I was reassured that I wouldn't have to be out of pocket for anything else, that I needed to have it corrected to get that end result I'd been hoping for the first time. So I went away with the massage techniques and the reassurance that when I did come back at 12 weeks, if I still wasn't happy, the support that I needed to be able to get the desired result in the end, and the discussion of future surgery and things like that was an option for me. When I came back at 12 weeks, obviously a revision was something that I did need to have done. So again, I discussed with Mr. Richards what I wasn't happy about. And there were about 2 or 3 things that had kind of happened that I wasn't happy about. So we discussed those, and he came up with the best solution to be able to try and rectify all those points, and did reassure me that It was nothing to do with the surgical procedure. It was just my anatomy that kind of put me at a disadvantage, if you like. He changed the placement of the implant because I'd had a surgery previously where before I'd been quite athletic and I hadn't really been a candidate to have implants that went over. Now I'd kind of stretched the skin a little bit, so I was more of a candidate for that. So that was the best solution for me. So we discussed the size, we discussed the placement, and obviously the same procedure would happen again. But I was reassured that I'd be in less discomfort the second time round. So that was all discussed, and then I met with somebody to be able to discuss when the surgery could be booked in, and that was all simple. The revision surgery was completely different. I had been dual plane before, so half under the muscle, so I knew that was going to be a more painful procedure, and I'd already been told that going over was going to be less painful anyway, and then having a second procedure is ultimately less painful. So I was already reassured that I wasn't going to be in as much pain as I had been the first time round. And I obviously knew what to expect before. I was familiar with the staff, familiar with the hospital, and everything was just as well supported for me the second time round as I had been the first. When I came back for my revision, I didn't have to stay as an overnight patient, which was nice and reassuring. It was nice and quick. I was first in, recovery was really quick in my room, and then I was allowed to go home the same day. So I didn't have to stay overnight and go through that ordeal again as well. But after the surgery, I was in very little pain. I was amazed at how little pain that I was in. I think I took the ibuprofen that they gave me in the hospital, and then I didn't take anything else. So I was good after the second procedure. Results now are as I expected them to be the first time round, which is really pleasing. So they are exactly how I wanted the finished look to be, and I now feel far more comfortable than I did before I went through either of my surgeries. I'm far more positive about myself before. I think before I'd shy away from wearing clothes that would particularly pick out my cleavage because I didn't really have one. Whereas now I feel that I can wear the tops that I kind of would have wanted to wear but kind of shied away from before. So I'm just a little bit more confident than I used to be, because it didn't really matter what anyone else thought about how I looked. It was all about how I felt in myself. So I feel far more comfortable. I would highly recommend Aurora. It doesn't really matter whether you are completely clued up when you come to investigate the surgery at Aurora Clinics. They will school you from the very beginning, and if you have done your research, they reassure you that what you have researched matches their procedures and what you can expect. And then the aftercare procedure is obviously very, very good. If anything isn't as you have expected, they're very supportive in making sure that the end result is as you want, so they will do all that they can to help.